The morning fog hung thick over the river Derwent, the silence broken only by the distant clamor of armored boots. As the first rays of sunlight pierced the mist, an army stood at the ready, but this wasn't a typical battlefield. On one side stood the might of the Norse, warriors who had dominated the British Isles for over a century, feared by all who crossed their path. On the other side, a mere fraction of their number, yet determined, resolute, their hearts set on the impossible. Today, we're diving into the Battle of Stamford Bridge, one of the most dramatic, thrilling, and in many ways tragic clashes in medieval history. This battle wasn't just about kingdoms at war. It was about the survival of a nation, a clash between two worlds, and a turning point that would echo through history. The year was 1066. England was a nation in turmoil, caught in a delicate balance of power, with every corner of the island shaken by invasion. For years the English throne had been under siege from both external forces and internal factions. But the greatest threat of all, the Northmen, Viking raiders who had long since left their brutal mark on Britain, and now, under their leader Harold Hardrada, they had come to claim England for themselves. Hardrada was no ordinary Viking chieftain. He was a living legend, a man whose name struck terror into the hearts of anyone who heard it. For nearly 2 decades, he had carved his way across Europe, conquering, pillaging, and forging alliances. His ambition was clear, to rule England. And in the spring of 1066 that ambition had brought him across the North Sea to the shores of England. But there was a problem. Hardrada's ambitions were about to clash head-on with one man, one ruler who was determined to keep his throne, King Harold Godwinson of England. Godwinson had risen from relative obscurity to become the most powerful man in England. But his path to the throne had been fraught with challenges. After the sudden death of King Edward the Confessor, Harold was crowned king, but not without opposition. Both the Norwegians and the Normans, led by William the Conqueror, had claims to the throne. And it was Hardrada who struck first. The Vikings landed in the north, overwhelming York, and quickly began laying siege to the city. The English were caught off guard. The prospect of Viking domination loomed closer than ever. But there was one problem Hardrada hadn't counted on: Harold Godwinson himself. Harold had just finished dealing with a rebellion in the south. His army was tired, battle-worn, and had been forced to march hundreds of miles in record time. But there was no other choice. His throne was at risk. His nation was at risk. And so on September 25th, 1066, with his men exhausted, weary from days of marching, Harold met Hardrada on the battlefield at Stamford Bridge. The Vikings were ready. They stood in their battle formations, their famous longships anchored in the river, a testament to their seafaring prowess. Harold Hardrada, dressed in his full battle armor, was poised to deliver a decisive blow to the English forces. But as dawn broke, something unexpected happened. The English, outnumbered, tired, and on the defensive, launched a brutal attack. They didn't hesitate. They didn't falter. What followed was nothing short of a bloodbath. The Viking shield wall, often impenetrable and legendary in its defense, was broken. The fierce Northmen, warriors accustomed to striking fear into their enemies, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to be intimidated. They fought tooth and nail, but it was not enough. One of the most chilling moments of the battle came when a lone Viking warrior, with his back against the river Derwent, held the bridge at Stamford for what seemed like an eternity. Armed with nothing but his shield and a spear, he fought off wave after wave of English soldiers, buying time for his comrades to regroup. But in the end, the Vikings were overwhelmed. Hardrada, in a desperate attempt to rally his forces, was struck down. His reign, which had threatened to change the course of English history, was cut short. But the victory came at a cost. Harold Godwinson's army had paid a heavy price. Thousands of English soldiers were dead, their bodies strewn across the battlefield. And while the Vikings were defeated, the real tragedy lay in the fact that their victory had come just a little too late. For just a few days later, another invasion, one even more dangerous, would land on the shores of England. The Normans, led by William the Conqueror, had been watching from across the Channel, waiting for their moment. And with Hardrada's death, the stage was set for the Battle of Hastings. The Battle of Stamford Bridge, while a tremendous victory for Harold Godwinson, was also a devastating one. His army had been battered and weakened, and though they had defeated Hardrada's Vikings, they would be no match for William's forces just weeks later. The dream of a unified England under Harold's rule was fading fast. And so the story of Stamford Bridge is one of triumph, yes, but also of tragedy. A battle fought with valor and courage, but one that would ultimately be overshadowed by the events that would unfold on the fields of Hastings. But the legacy of Stamford Bridge lives on in the hearts of the English people. It stands as a testament to their courage in the face of overwhelming odds, and a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories come at the highest cost. The Vikings may have lost, but in death, Hardrada became a symbol, a warning to those who would dare to challenge the might of the English throne. And though the battle was fought long ago, the echoes of Stamford Bridge still resonate today. For in the end, it wasn't just about who won or lost. It was about the choices made, the men who fought, and the sacrifices they endured. The Battle of Stamford Bridge was more than just a battle. It was a turning point, a moment in history where the old world of Viking raids and conquest collided with the emerging power of England. A world that, for all its blood and steel, would soon give way to a new era of kings, knights, and empires. The men who fought there, their names etched in the annals of history, remind us that sometimes even the greatest warriors cannot escape the inevitable.